the headset. Is that better? Hey,
Yes,
Brad.
there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
So I
So you
know
have lots of questions, Brad?
I got a ton of questions. You
since
guys,
the last time we got together, Brad is now a father of some baby chicks. Is that correct?
yeah, I had 8. Yeah, I'm really excited. I had 8 eggs that I put in an incubator and put them in on December 26th, and had a whole bunch of conditions that probably through that 21 days said they weren't going to hatch. And then we had just absolute chaos on hatching day with the power going out, the incubator dropping 20 degrees, the water pouring out of the incubator. It was just about everything that could go wrong on hatching day did, but we got 5 out of the 8 to hatch.
Wow.
Congratulations.
That's excellent.
That's good.
I'm
That's
so
very
excited.
good.
Basically, you have now doubled your flock size.
I did, yeah, I did. And the other part too is my wife has said, "Hey, can we do this again in the spring?"
All right.
Like, yeah, okay, we'll triple our flock size.
Yeah. And like I say, now is an opportunity that you can, you can buy eggs from different. So if you want to change some of your breeds, it's easy to buy eggs and get those, or if you know somebody, get some fertile eggs from them, and just start something new. So.
Right, yeah, we've got a couple at the coop camp that we're doing out at your education center later in February. We've got a couple of I don't know what they're called. They're really special breeds. They're coming to make presentations on these breeds, so I'm hoping to learn a little bit about that.
Oh, probably somebody from the Livestock Conservancy. Is it?
I don't know. They're local in your area. They do what is it? Black, how do you pronounce the black coaching or?
Black coaching, okay, yeah, coaching. Mm-hmm. Well, great, fabulous. So, let's see here. Do we have it? So, what questions did you have? I know you had emailed and said that you were full of questions on what to do now.
Yeah, these are in no order. I've written them down because there's so many of them. Okay, so again, no order to these. They were born on Martin Luther King Day, so last Monday. So they're right now 10, 11 days old. At what point do I need to start introducing grit?
Well, if you're using a very fine feed, you probably go ahead. I mean, I would be going ahead and get like a little bit of a little starter grit in there right now just to get them used to it. So, I mean, if you're using a very fine feed, it may not be quite as important there in the very beginning, but I think that I would go ahead and get it in there.
Yep.
Is sand okay?
Is what?
And or what's the right grit for this size of chick?
It's called a starter grit. It's just a starter grit.
Do you guys sell that?
We do.
We do.
Okay. Are you guys hooked out with Agrarian here yet?
No, we are not hooked out with Agrarian. I think I spoke with them, and I think there's some local organic chicken feed dealers in the area, I believe, possibly, and that he was wanting to use.
Can I order that at your website then?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can order it from our website. But I might suggest. It all depends on how close you are to me. You might want to check your local feed store because I'm not trying to talk out of a sale, but it's a very heavy product, and that it is basically usually it's just ground granite. So the amount of shipping that you'll pay is always far more expensive than what the cost of our starter grit is. So you might want to save yourself some money. You might want to see if just your local feed store might have some starter grit. If not, please come to www.newcountryorganics.com.
Yeah, I'm staying with New Country. Thanks for that.
All right. Yeah, but
Well, Kevin.
Go ahead. No, Pat, you've got something to add?
Yeah, I do, and that's I'm working on the book, The Way of the Hen, Incubating Eggs and Brooding Chicks Naturally. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, if you observe a chicken in the wild, or if she's free-range, they start scratching those little chicks from the very first day. They're out there scratching and pecking, and even while she's still sitting on the other eggs to hatch. So with my chicks that I hatch here, I just go ahead and give them some really good compost that I know the source from, or from garden soil, and they love it. So I feel like they get their probiotics right from the get-go. They're sort of mimicking nature, and I have literally zero problems with taste buds or digestive troubles with the ones I hatch. I had to set that in. Sorry, Kevin, I'm not trying to talk you out of the sale.
No. That's one of the things that I talk about. That if you are, it's good to get a good starter feed that has probiotics and all of these things in there, because if you don't have the mother hen, and they're not free ranging, that's one of the things that they are missing from their first early development, is the out scratching on the ground, picking up things. I mean, it's just like a child, a human. They do a lot of everything goes into their mouth, and a lot of that you're inoculating your system with all kinds of things. And that's if you're incubating and doing that, all the thing like that, you are taking away that aspect of their early life. And that's why it's also important to, you don't want to do a medicated feed in a lot of ways, because a lot of these things, they are actually working to suppress that immune system that is growing inside your baby chick. All of the digestive microbes that are in their intestines and everything, that in a medicated feed, you're actually working against their system. So you're making a weaker chick in a lot of ways. So for later in life, in particular, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
There are also some species of birds, Kevin, that the mother hen will defecate in the nest at the end, at the rhea especially, and the little baby chick will bubble it down like a colostrum. I haven't observed chickens do that, but that kind of makes sense. They've got a healthy hen, their digestive system have.
Yeah, I mean that's the thought also for to prevent coccidiosis, is that they have that resistance, that immune is already in their system, and so that if they are getting into the manure of a healthy hen, that they're one of the newest things in health is a fecal transplant. If you happen to have if you have a compromised system, is that if you probably preferably to ask someone of your own family for such a thing as this, but yeah, it's a fecal transplant. You can buy little pills and eat them and re-inoculate your system with good bacteria.
Okay, let's say I want to go that route. Can you give me how you broach that topic with one of your family members? Can you just role play that for me, Kevin?
Well, you've got to try to figure out you've got upper hand in some way. You have to have done something very important for them, where you're like, oh, by the way, there is something that I would like to, no, anything. You just ask me. All right. Well, there is something you could do for me.
They do that with livestock too, to try to build immunity. We tried that with our goats when we had a really bad coccidia outbreak. And we had 2 goats in our herd that were immune. So my mom made me try that method, and that was the nastiest thing I've ever done in my life.
How do you know that?
How did you do it? What
Apparently,
was the procedure?
you glove up and go for it. But apparently you have to go much further into the digestive tract than I did. So it's like further up into the digestive tract, which would take surgery. It's not just, inserting it towards the end of the digestive tract, if that makes sense.
So I wonder that if, since a goat's manure is already kind of a dry pelleted type of product, I wonder if you could food process that and mix that in with some regular food and maybe that's.
No, the problem with that, Kevin, is with people anyway, it's about a 40-foot chute to get down to where the bacteria need to be, and they have trouble passing through the. So it's medically approved now by FDA to have the poop implants, I guess you would say, done the same way as when you have a colonoscopy, where they actually insert it when they're doing that procedure, or a colonics. Mm-hmm. It's got to get way up in the upper.
So what if you ground it up and put it in a gel cap?
It wouldn't do much good because it can't get past the bacteria, the hydrochloric acid in your at least that's what I've read. You can go ahead and try it.
I might try that.
We're a little off topic though. I was simply saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are a little. So here we go. Yes, I'm sorry. Here we go. Blue or green is your Easter egg. Let's see. I am interested in trying to hatch some eggs. Any suggestions as far as purchasing an incubator? I believe the incubator you have is a very nice one, is it not, Brad?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've got. Well, I don't know. It's the only one I have, so I don't know where
Well,
it is.
I think. Yeah. What incubator are you using?
It's a GQF, and then I've got a Brincia. Is it pronounced Brincia or Brincia? Brincy?
Brincy.
Yeah, I've got one of those brooder, the Echo Glow brooder lamp.
Nice.
Brooder. Peter.
There's a question here. Is there an actual coccidiosis vaccine? I don't think there's an actual vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there is a medication that's kind of what the medication is in a medicated feed. I don't know exactly what the name of it is, but I think generally when it's a medicated feed, that's what they're medicating for is against coccidiosis. I don't think there's a vaccine.
A common one for ruminants is called Rumensin. The bad side of using that in your feed, one is that you're using, chemical prevention at that point, but also that it's extremely toxic to dogs and other critters. So it's best to not use it if you've got your dogs running around your barn picking stuff up. So.
And it will also kill your horses.
Yep, that too. That was the other species.
Yeah.
Holy smokes!
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the. That's one of the questions. That's one of the difficulties of when you're having a multi-feed type of coming out of a single mill, and they use products like that. That's always the concern. I know they had quite a bit of difficulty in North Carolina this past year because some Rumensin got into some horse feed, and it ended up it was pretty tragic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about
were you saying, Pat?
I'm sorry.
Thanks. Just I don't want to give mixed messages because what's true for industry is they've got massive numbers of birds, hundreds of thousands that they're brooding right after they hatch out, as opposed to your family flock. What you've got there, Brad, is 8, and I think it's a different healthcare system for that. It's a lot easier to keep track of and treat 8 than it would be, several thousand. So I would, if I had a commercial system, I'm not sure I would put compost or my garden soil in with the baby chicks. I would like to see some studies about doing that. It sort of depends on the bird itself, the quality of the parental stock. I mean, it's so many variables. So I just didn't want to say, oh, we're advocating just giving dirt to all chickens all across the board. In industry, it wouldn't be appropriate.
Well, I think, what it is that in a lot of ways of what we talk about is that you're trying to mimic nature in a lot of ways. And so if you are brooding out, 1,000 chicks, that you are certainly not mimicking nature. There are certain precautions that have to be made, when you're doing, that large a type of operation because it's very tight quarters. All it takes is just a couple of sick chicks. And before you know it, it's running quickly throughout the system. That's one of the difficulties with today's modern, I guess, this CAFO, is what it's called. And that's why we use so much antibiotics in today's food system. It's like I say, you have 500 to 1,000 swine in a building. All it takes is one of them to catch the flu, and it runs rampant throughout the whole thing. So it has to be done that way, and that's why we are working to get away from that type of confined feeding operation.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
What about treats? When can I start feeding like mealworms or soldier flies or something like that to chicks?
Anytime you like. Anytime you like.
They don't need grit to get through that, even if it's dry.
No. Like I say, you might want to go ahead. Like I say, it's time. I'd put some little grit out right now. Just let them start working with that. But no, this is the best thing that a baby chick can eat is an insect, is a bug.
Okay.
I mean,
what about
calcium? Calcium should be in your feed. It should be in your feed. I mean, certainly, or you can use an oyster shell grit but it should be the calcium should be in the feed that you're giving.
Okay.
And at that age,
not
they don't
calcium.
really need as high a calcium content. I mean, they do for bone development, I guess, but they're not putting calcium into layer production. So that's when you need it, usually in greater quantities.
Exactly. Thank you.
There was
Which is another baby chicks don't need a lot of
that does it matter whether it's live or dry?
Yeah. Someone's asked a question about what's the name of that drug again, and it's called Rumensin. Oh, there we go. Somebody typed it in there. Very good. That would be Jillian. Jillian is always quick on the draw with her keyboard. So. Not live mealworms. Yeah, if you've got, I mean, if you're into live mealworms, yeah, that you feed live mealworms. Like I say, when I was raising chicks, one of the like I say, I had great success. I had a bug net, and I would just go out with my bug net into the grass and just run it through the grass right quick and bring it in and just dump it right into the brooder, and all kinds of little bugs, and the chicks loved it. I mean, I think it's good exercise as they chase them around, and one's got a bug and the others are chasing after it. I mean, it's good for them, and like I say, it's 100% protein. It is nature's perfect food for a chick.
Mm-hmm.
Because more than likely that bug has also been rolling around on the ground and it's covered with all kinds of probiotics, all kinds of good stuff.
What is a probiotic?
What is a probiotic? It's a digestive bacteria that helps it's like a lot of times you'll see like a lactobacillus is what it'll say on the tags. A lot of times that's one of the most common things that you'll see. It says lactobacillus, but there's a variety of other ones. I can't think of all of them. Like I say,
Essentially, you have good bacteria and bad bacteria in your gut, and so a probiotic is reestablishing that good flora in your gut to promote healthy digestion. So as far as human cells versus bacterial cells in your body, there's more bacterial cells than there is human cells. And so all of those are living in like a symbiotic relationship to you. It's helping you digest your food. It's helping you adapt to your environment, etc. So taking a probiotic is just going to reestablish the good bacteria versus the bad. So especially if you have like a stomach bug or something like that, that's why doctors often say, take a probiotic. It'll help with digestive upset.
And that's the so there's always like a voting system going on inside your gut. They're trying to see who we got good bacteria. And once the bad bacteria start to outnumber good bacteria, they start to multiply. And so that's why they tell you, okay, you need to take an antibiotic because now you need to kill off those bad ones. So it's always good to be trying to replenish your system. I mean, you can do that with yogurt. You can do that with kefir. You can do that with kimchi. Fermented foods are great. I'm trying to think what's the drink that has the mushroom on the top of it. Kombucha. Kombucha does that. So there's all kinds of great things. But if you have the ability to do it, and the doctor does put you on antibiotics, it's good to also try to take some digestive yeast, because antibiotics have no effect on that, and so that will help you out as far as your digestion. All right, let's get back to some questions here. Yeah.
One of them says, which is better in the brooder, hay or sand or something else? I've always used like pine chips or hemp bedding, that kind of stuff, little pieces versus, dust. You don't want dusty things in there, in my opinion.
Too much sand is going to affect their digestive. Yeah.
Well, what about dust baths? When can you start putting something out for a dust bath, and what do you use in that dust bath?
I just use sand from the stream. Put it out right from the first day.
What do you use?
From riverbed. You
can get some river sand. Don't if you're going to use some sort of sand, don't use playground sand. That's a little too fine, I think. If there's a stream near you, just get a bucket and dig it up and put it in there, and you can dump that out. It works really well. As far as doing a dusting, if you're going to do like a dusting thing. I wouldn't if it's in an enclosed area. If you're in the brooder and it's tight, I wouldn't put something that's like a diatomaceous earth. Some people use that as a dusting bath. That probably wouldn't be the best thing because of it's an enclosed area, so you're going to be creating quite a bit of that diatomaceous earth, which is extremely dusty in a small area.
And they're okay 10 days old to put in that river sand?
Certainly.
I do it very,
Okay.
but I'm a little extreme, different when it comes to what's in the textbooks and all the culture books. But it works for me.
Yep. I've used that, like I say, and it's free. And the whole idea of using river sand, it's also has a whole gambit of different trace minerals that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're using just like a grit, like a gravel grit, you're only going to get what's in that grit. So
depending on what river you get it from too. Some rivers are a little cleaner than others. Know your source as usual.
Yeah, some rivers are better than others.
Somebody else asked if yogurt is good for chicks and chickens. And there's another question about cedar shavings and whether or not they're toxic to birds.
In my opinion, they are. And laboratory animals will never use pine or cedar. They'll only use the aspen shavings because there's no off-gassing.
Okay.
But you consider that little chick is right there. Those nose is right by that. So just take even some pine shavings, put your nose in it, and see. You'll see how it can congest you up pretty badly. Some people.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Someone also asked that they're thinking about just letting the chickens hatch out their eggs naturally. Is there anything that is special that I need to do? And not really. The chickens they do a wonderful job all on their own. I mean, there are certain things. I mean, you don't want to. You want to make sure that they're setting in a good location where they're somewhat protected in the coop, and they have the ability to if they have chicks, you don't want them way up high. You want to have it on the corner of a lower level where they can get out once the chicks hatch. But pretty much the chickens will they pretty much take care of everything on their own, I think.
Can I say one thing on that is
ahead,
one
please,
thing
Pat.
not to do. Say again?
Please.
Don't move the mother hen because as those eggs are picking out, the shells become really fragile. And if she should shuffle or step on one, or if they get just bang against each other, so just leave the hen alone unless you know what you're doing. Because sometimes towards the end of a hatch, there might be some eggs not hatched out yet. And you might want to go and pull those out and put them in an incubator if you think they might still hatch. Or if you've got guinea hens, something that needs longer to incubate than what the chickens are. That's all.
There's a follow-up question from them is that they want to know, do I need to bring the mother any food then? No, you don't need to bring her any food. She'll get up and take care of that herself.
What I found, Kevin, is a hen that's sitting, if you put food and water where she can reach it without getting off of the nest, she'll feed and eat and drink. And that they don't lose as much water. And then also, when the babies catch up, they're ready to eat from that very first as soon as they dry off. So having chick crumble there, even though she's still on the nest, I think is a good thing for the chick to get started. Because I don't want to wait for my chicks to eat. I want to use their energy to grow rather than how to get started, which can be 3 days.
Yep.
Hey, there's a good question by Amy that I'm interested in also. How do you sex the baby chicks? I've got 5, so I'm trying to figure out how many roosters I might have versus how many hens.
I have absolutely no idea.
Thank you, Kevin.
There are something. Pat, are you very good at sexing chicks?
Only if they're sex linked.
Okay, well, okay.
Where they have different monkeys, But otherwise, I kind of have to wait till they're closed.
Yeah. I have zero experience with that.
But amazingly enough, there are people that can do it with just quickly, just amazing. So
It is a talent. They can look at their undersides and they're experts.
When do I start on grower feed? When do I move to that next level?
After 4 weeks. Yeah. So when they're 4 weeks old, you transition them slowly to the grower broiler feed. And they're on that until 16 weeks old or until they reach first egg.
Okay. And when do I know if they're ready to go outside?
once they're fully feathered, or like I said, they can go out if it's like 65 degrees outside, around that temperature. So, but once they're fully feathered, you want to try to introduce them slowly. I mean, particularly where they'll be starting to feather out really well here in about a month or so. But still, it's going to be very cold in Illinois, so it's not like this. Just you chuck them outside there. There you go. You're on your own now, son and daughters.
When you talk 65, is that the low temperature at night or the low temperature during the day?
That's just the temperature. That's probably most convenient, whether it's night or day. It's 65 degrees. If it's 65 at night, it's probably it's great weather. 65 during the day is where I guess is what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, because at night they'll go inside their coop as well, and that's another source of heat. It's not going to be much different from outside, but once they're inside their coop, they'll huddle up together and they'll provide warmth for each other. So that's not as much of a concern. Now, if it's dropping down super low temperatures, then I might consider a heat source.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got more questions unless you want to take some from the side.
Thank you. One more question. Should I just leave the mother hen hatch in the nesting box? Should I just leave the mother hen to hatch in the nesting box? Yes. Yes, do leave her in the hatching box. Just leave her where she is. Go ahead, Pat. Yep.
If I relocate my hens. I have done them in the nesting box, and what happens is the other hens will go and lay eggs with her, and then you don't know what age the egg is, or unless you mark them. And then also when it comes time to hatch out, she's in kind of a bad situation in a nest box. So I usually move them to a location of their own. The hen really likes to have her privacy. Sometimes I'll use a very large cardboard box, like from a chair or something that comes in. And other times they can do it in like a dog carrier, and then I can let them out for their break. That's a little more intensive though. But, I think leaving them in the next box, you can do that. I think you're not going to get as good a hatch, and there are a lot of problems with it in just keeping the eggs sorted out. And the hens will even switch. They'll come back to the wrong nest, so you'll end up, not knowing which hen is in which box if you have more than one brooding hen. Yep. I don't recommend it, but I have done it.
Good.
There's a multitude of ways you can do that.
What do you think, Jillian? Do you have some other ways on that? Because usually we're mentoring reemploying them really fast.
Yeah, moving them is certainly fine. Also, leaving them is also fine. I've seen both done, so I haven't personally done that because we haven't had any of ours raise their own. We just hatched from chicks, but I've seen and heard both done with both success. So there's a variety of ways. I've seen people raise them in their bathtubs. So there's plenty of different options out there. You find what works best for you, I guess.
Yeah, if you can move them to a spot, that is probably best. If you can't move them to their own spot, that's probably best. Yes.
Yep.
So we're talking about hens with chicks still, right? Or just brooding?
No, hens sitting on eggs.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think I've had one in my bathtub sitting on eggs.
I don't think so. Yeah.
No, I've had. You'd be surprised. There's people who have used those for their brooders, and they section it out with dividers and everything. I've seen a lot.
With other hens?
Yep. It was in their basement, so yeah.
Wow. Well, let's talk more about that. I'd like to know what they did. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they also had a couple goat stalls down there, and the basement was not considered part of the house.
Yes, you can't just tell your husband that you are now moving the chicken and the eggs to the bathtub. So do you have another question, Brad?
Yeah, I got a bunch. I've heard about something called splayed leg. Like if you have a slippery surface, what is that? How do I avoid it?
One of the things I guess is to make sure that you have some sort of a good traction in your chick. You don't. Some people will just use because I've never had really a lot of difficulty with by using newspaper or some sort of paper, just because the chicks create pretty much a mess pretty quickly. But it's not always the best way of doing it. But that's how I always did it. So that's why it's good to try to provide some sort of a rougher surface for them to move around on. Generally, I think also splayed leg has to do, to me, it's been much more prevalent with broilers, in the sense that they're growing too fast and they can't keep up with it, with what's going on. But that's been my experience with splayed leg has been with broilers than just laying chicks. So.
Gotcha.
Do you have any suggestions, Pat or Jillian?
I second what Kevin said. We used newspaper for just a baseline, just for extra absorption, but then we had other things on top of that. I think as the chicks got older, we ended up actually just taking some dirt and leaves and stuff from where our older chickens were, and starting to incorporate them to the bedding that they'd be going out to outside. But initially I'm trying to think what we used for bedding when we had the chicks. I can't remember now, but I know towards the end of it, we started mixing in outdoor materials to kind of acclimate them to that, and then transition them to an outside coop.
That's interesting, because one of my other questions is when we get ready to integrate them to the outside, you started bringing in manure and dirt from where your existing flock was into the brooder?
I think it was more from where our chickens had turned over our garden when we had them penned in there. And so we just took some of that material and stuck it inside. So I raised them in a fish tank, obviously without the water. But we had the newspaper down, and then we put some of the dirt from our garden in there with some leaves and everything. So it's sort of more natural, I guess. And then we did that for about a week, and then we transitioned them to outside. But inside, we had poultry bedding spread inside the coop for at night. Gotcha.
And Pat, as I look to do this integration, what kinds of things do I need to be aware of when I take these 5 chicks and they're going to have a separate coop, but at some point they'll probably free range together. Is there anything I need to do to help that integration process?
There is. One of the things is having areas where the chicks can get away from the larger ones. Sometimes there'll be a bully hen or a rooster will kind of chase them. They can get under the seat area where they can go, but the larger ones can't. It might be bushes. I suggest putting multiple feeders, so sometimes the older birds can, as the little ones come up, they'll get pecked on the head and they get chased away from the feeder, and then they get shy about going to the feeder or water her, and that can actually cause sort of a really delayed kind of starve out. So, and just keep an eye out for bullies. If they start picking on one or two, you've got to address that, especially if blood starts to be drawn. Take the bully bird out.
I drive a Prius. I'm always looking out for bullies. Hey, so Jillian, as we look to try and keep them amused, I guess, we're putting different things into the brooder, like a stick. We've got a chicken swing in there, a mirror, a stuffed animal. Dangerous? Is that okay to do?
I don't see why it would be dangerous, except I would just make sure that anything you're putting in there that they could potentially try to eat, that it's not a foreign material. It's not going to be like buttons or things like that they could peck off and eat. Nothing plastic like that. I would just, make sure that they're not able to eat that stuffed animal that you mentioned.
Out of curiosity, what is the stuffed animal?
It's a big long, it looks like a kind of dachshund. Big long stuffed red dachshund.
Yeah, do they like it?
My thought is that's going to end up being a nasty stuffed animal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just going to get on top of it and go to the bathroom. So I mean, hopefully it's not something that belonged to your daughter or something like that she cherished, that she wants back. Exactly.
Yeah.
Good point.
What are the chickens doing with it? How do they react to that?
The mirror, they look at themselves. The stick and the swing, sometimes they stand on or hop over. And then the stuffed animal, they seem to, it's like a soft roosting bar, I guess. They seem to sit up there sometimes.
Okay. I mean, those sort of things I would be fine incorporating, but the stuffed animal, I wouldn't necessarily put that in there.
I'm a bit skeptical of the stuffed animal myself. I don't know. I mean,
skeptical of it because of what will happen to it, or skeptical because of what it might do to them?
Because what will happen to your stuffed animal?
Well,
I'm okay losing a stuffed animal. I don't want to lose a chick.
Well,
but I'm just curious as to what is your purpose for having it in there?
Yeah.
So that they have something to play with.
They're not going to play with a stuffed animal.
Maybe they might mimic the mother hen. You know, do they kind of try to get up underneath it and do that little wiggle kind of thing, or are they attracted to a surrogate mother?
More on top of it, I haven't seen anything that says that they're treating it like a mother hen.
One person did make a good point. They said it could mold. I would watch for it getting wet, you know, if they're going to the bathroom on it, et cetera, take it out. I mean, same reason with what Kevin suggests as far as putting a towel underneath water is you want to keep moisture to a minimum. Because otherwise their bedding could get pretty nasty pretty quick. And then they could also develop respiratory issues.
Good point. What about playing music?
I mean, I always found that music calms animals. I used to bring my guitar in my barn, so.
You play guitar?
I do.
Oh, cool. Is there any song any kind of song that you would play that they respond differently than another?
Not hard rock, but things that are, you know, soothing. So anytime I was milking my animals or just, you know, chilling up there, I would sing to them quietly and just do things that are calming. Usually things that are calming to people are also calming to animals.
Could you sing an example so I know?
Not currently.
Because this is taped, then I could just keep playing it back on YouTube.
Well, you know,
so someone asked a question here about the. Go ahead. So someone asked a question about the pecking of the feathers here, and so, you know, Pat has responded that, you know, pecking of feathers could be a protein problem or boredom. So that is certainly you know, something you might want to just check on what you're feeding your chickens. Just to make sure that it's a proper protein. I've heard also that it could be sometimes it could be a sulfur problem, that because I think feathers are very high in sulfur, so it could be a mineral deficiency. But usually it's more than likely it's a protein type of situation more than anything else. So they don't play music, but they certainly talk to their chickens. So I think that. The more you talk to your chickens, the more you like or sing to them, you know, it's a soothing thing for them because they come more accustomed to you, to your voice in a lot of ways. So it's a good thing that you know, that they recognize you. Although chickens are probably much more visual than sound, but you can tell, you know, like a mother hen. You know, she can make a couple of good clucks, you know, and all the chicks will come to her.
Yep.
You know, they know, like I say, she's talking to her chicks even while they're in the egg. While they're in the egg, they hear her clucking going on. So they recognize her voice. So that's you basically, by talking to them, you're taking their place. You are the mother hen.
A lot of responsibility.
There was a study done in Australia, and they examined playing music, different kinds of music, into a commercial flock, and they found that the soothing or classical or more gentle music that the chickens really did like, they were more productive, they ate more, and they were less quarrelsome than those that did not have music or those that were having hard rock. So there's actually an industry now that provides piped-in music in Australia for poultry houses, and part of their growing.
Yeah, Actually, for most species, they find that to be true. My dog is a border collie cattle dog cross, and he has very high energy, very high anxiety. And when I first got him, 'cause he's a rescue, and it got to the point that he was just busting out of everything. And so my aunt recommended getting a classical CD for dogs, and I did, and it worked a miracle. I didn't believe in it at first, but it is true. It's a calming, consistent sound.
That's a great idea. You and Pat should put together a chicken CD. You guys both singing on it. Hey, my chicks right now are trying to fly. 10 days old, and they're kind of jumping and flapping their wings, and they're going like 6 inches, 8 inches. Anything to be concerned about, or anything to watch out for?
I always make sure there's nothing that they can jump into.
Yeah. Just make sure they can't get out is the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that's good. That's exercise. That's healthy. But yeah, you just want to make sure they don't get out,
And if there is a heater that you're using of some sort that they're not able to reach that heat source and burn themselves.
Okay. When we had the 8 eggs, 3 of them didn't hatch, and I opened up the 3. One was still just an egg inside, but 2 had chicks in them, pretty far along chicks. So I'm trying to figure out what I might have done wrong to stop them from making it out. And I don't know if any of these factors, we had some things that happened beyond our control. One, the power went out on the day that they started hatching, and the incubator dropped 20 degrees almost immediately. Then, since the power was out, I took them out to my car to crank the heat and get them back warm in my car. And as I was running up the stairs with them, the water spilled out, so the humidity level changed, and they were bouncing into each other as I was running up the stairs. So could any of those factors have played into? Why are you laughing?
No, it's
the image of it.
Oh, it was incredible how everything possible that could have gone wrong on hatching day went wrong.
Not really.
Yeah.
You had a very successful hatch. You had about 64% hatch rate, which for everything they do, I think is not a good hatch rate.
There's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, there's so many hatches. Oh my God.
Do you open up the ones that don't hatch? And is there anything, as I'm doing this, I'm trying to figure out, what do I don't even know what to look for to figure out if I can one thing I did, and I only did it to 3 eggs, and I don't know if it was these 3 eggs, but I forgot to candle early on. So I candled on the 17th day, and I only took 3 out to candle them, and I couldn't see through any of the 3, and then I put them back in. Could that have affected them at all?
No, if the one was well along, it was almost looked like a complete chick. How long did you give them to hatch out of you? Was it just?
I gave them 7 days after the first one hatched.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
that one, those other 2 weren't going to come out of there. I don't know. Why.
Guilt is optional. You did absolutely nothing wrong. It was just some make it, they'll tip out almost all the way, and then they die in the shell because they just have to get out. It's just not every egg is intended to hatch, and not every chick is intended to get out, which is a good thing, because if they do get out, they're a sickly chick, and you got a special needs chick, and that can be worse than having a bad chick.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yep.
That could be hard on your marriage.
There were a few things leading up to the incubation too that I wonder if it played in. Like, for example, the temperature in the room outside the incubator I thought was supposed to be 70, but in our basement it's 55. So the incubator stayed at 100, but outside temperature is 55. To try and get the viability of the eggs to hatch, I was told by a couple people that you can put them in the refrigerator to extend their life. And then I was told by other people, don't ever put them in the refrigerator. So being a prisoner of the moment, I immediately put them in the refrigerator for a day, and then took them back out and put them back on the counter until I started incubating them. And then they all went in the the earliest one was 15 days old, and on up until like 20 days old when I actually did put them in the incubator. Could any of those things have factored into?
Like I said, I think I would never. If you're thinking about incubating an egg, I would never refrigerate it. Myself. So, and that's just my thought on it. Yeah.
I prefer not to set eggs older than 7 days, 10 at the most, because the older that embryo gets,
I was going to say that also sounded like an old egg to me. Yeah. So.
What about candling? What's the right day to candle?
I do it before I set them.
It's once you start.
Yes. Oh yeah, you can see hairline cracks. I mean, it's not really a common practice, but we teach this in the incubation course. You can see all kinds of problems that might be inside the egg that you wouldn't see otherwise, like the air sac might be in the wrong place, or hairline cracks, or just really thin eggshells. It sort of shines through. If you have a choice, don't set those. So candling before and during, and some major hatcheries don't candle at all. They just wait till they're dealing with thousands of eggs, so they just let them go through to the hatch rate, and those that don't hatch out, so they just toss.
Yeah. I've not heard of refrigerating eggs either, going back to what you had mentioned. If you think about the natural process of when a hen's laying eggs, she'll set her set of eggs over a period of days. And then once she's actually sitting on the eggs, that's when the incubation process starts. So that's when you're putting them all in that warmth at the same time, essentially. So there's not really a need to refrigerate them. I'm not familiar with that. But as for what Pat was saying about candling as well, it is best to candle before starting because, like she said, you can see all those errors, those potential issues. But it also, in my opinion, is easier to see things. After a couple of days of growth, it's harder to candle, in my opinion. That might just be my lack of experience with it. But it's harder for me to make things out once they're a few days along.
So going along that line, if you're candling before you actually set the eggs, what are 2 or 3 things that you'd see that you'd say, okay, I'm not going to put that one in?
A crack.
Okay. Well, if the air sac is in the pointy end or up against or up in the middle, you want the air sac to be at the big end. That allows for the normal development of it. If there's sometimes an egg will come out of the hen and they'll have a really soft pointy end where the calcium didn't quite form. That's probably the weakest spot if there's going to be a weak spot on the egg. So you can see if there's 2 yolks in there. I never want to set double yolk eggs. The hairline cracks show up like worse. And if you've got an egg that has a peck in it, it looks like a moon crater. It's really actually. I got some pictures I don't know how to bring them up now. So there's a lot you can see, and it doesn't take a long time.
So if there's double yolks, and there could be twins, there's never a twin hatching?
There was one written article about 1800 about how a twin did hatch out of an egg, double yolks egg. They were connected together like a Siamese twin. But you're not gonna get 2 chicks out of an egg that are healthy. So I don't even go there. I like the yolks too much anyway.
Okay, now as I'm in the brooder phase, there's a lot of talk about how I need to lower my temperature each week versus just keep a heat source, and they pop in and out when they need heat. What's the thought there?
You can lower it about 5 degrees every week is one of the thoughts. But like I say, I'm always much more about just trying to pay attention to what they're doing in the brooder. Like I say, if you the whole time they're outside of underneath, away from the heat, then you know that it's just too hot in there. So I like to just keep an eye on what my chicks are doing. So if they're always standing out along the edge of your brooder, you just need to turn the heat down. You just want to make sure that they're staying active all the time. So that's kind of what I go by instead of I don't a set rule that all right, end of week 1, we'll drop down to 90 degrees. End of week 2, we're going to 85.
Mm-hmm. Pat, I have a quick question for you. Have you found what I mentioned about candling in the beginning versus later stages? Do you find that it's harder to see issues if it's later on versus before you set them?
What kind of issues? You talking about the embryo development later on?
Well, no, more so if you're looking for cracks in the shell, et cetera, as an embryo is developing, or if there's something that could potentially go wrong later on, but it's not enough to cause the embryo to stop development. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, the shell can get cracked. I mean, I've had incubator when it was turning, literally just go on over, and a lot of the eggs were cracked. I did call those out, but once that chick is developed, it's pretty hard. It becomes opaque. You can't really see through much. So at that point, you're not going to pick up the neuron cracks. And at that point, does bacteria getting into the chick, the embryo, cause disease? I don't know. I think it would depend on the chicken and its health and so many factors. There's so many factors.
Okay.
I prefer to handle about day 18 when I'm actually setting them in the hatcher. If I'm artificially incubating, and even if they're under the hen, I'll do it maybe day 15, 16. And those that are duds, I'll just go ahead and take out then. And you'll know they'll be duds like if you just gently shake them down, or if you look at them, they'll swish. You can actually see it's all liquid. They're not going to hatch out. Or if you can see there is if you smell them, like I use multi-sensory screening when I do my eggs. I'll sniff each one if it has that smell, and then the candling confirms it. I'll just go ahead and call it out too. Okay. So the hen, what's interesting is the hen will, when she's sitting, if she has a dead egg under her, she'll actually push it out from underneath her body. So she knows that's not worth trying to keep those eggs under her, because it's not going to develop. And I've actually found them on the floor before where they've been pushed out. She just didn't want to have anything to do with them. Whereas the other ones that are alive, she can feel the heartbeat and even communicate, because they talk to each other while the chick is still in the shell. And an embryo's heartbeat can be detected at only 24 hours after the beginning. So there's quite a bit to the living egg versus the egg that's died, or the embryo that's gone south, which is probably more than you wanted to know. Did that answer your question, Julian?
Yeah, I did. I don't have as much experience with candling, so that's why I asked. I only had what I had in class time, so.
So it makes sense that if you are incubating, it's good to talk to your eggs, Brad, so that they already learned and recognize your voice.
Will do.
Well, that's not good, Kevin, because what happens is that the hen, they actually learn to and bond while the hen is sitting on the egg. That chick will hatch out knowing its mother's cluck. And that's one of the ways a bunch of chicks around that they'll be able to find each other.
Yep.
It's pretty elegant.
Hey, what about, now that they're coming into their second week, what about supplements, electrolytes, anything to put in their food or water?
I would think generally that's after just during the first week. You want to think about maybe trying to fortify that. You can, if you think that there are some, a little bit of sugar in the water is always good. It provides a little extra energy, but generally I do that like during the first week. After the first week, it's just strictly fresh water. You can, if you think that they are under stress, if they have like I say, if a situation does come up of which the heat goes out, they get stressed or something, it's not bad to fortify them with some electrolytes. But generally, that's something that I after the first week, I'm just thinking just fresh water. So, so that's my take on it. But because generally your feed should have a good amount of minerals in it to help to supply that. So.
There was one question that I saw pop up on the side about what do you recommend, pellets or crumbles?
for baby chicks?
Well, I would if it's a baby chick, I would say a crumble. We just do a like a mash here, so it's a very fine mash is what we use. So that's I find that works very well. But if it's a chick, you definitely want to make sure that you're using a crumble because they're going to struggle with the pellet right off the bat. So.
Yeah, their digestive tract hasn't developed as much to be able to accommodate pellets.
It's just large. Yeah.
This might be a dumb question, but these eggs belong to one of my hens, Pokey, and so they've hatched inside. They'll be in. Why are you smiling?
It's Pokey, Pokey just makes me.
So when they'll be inside, they'll be in the brooder inside. When I actually do take them outside, will there be any recognition between Pokey and the chicks?
No. No.
Let us know if there is. I'd like to know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
That motherly instinct won't kick in. Yeah, there's a picture of Pokey.
Oh, an Americana?
I actually have my autographed photograph of Pokey.
Oh, Pokey's very good.
Love Pokey. Well, I guess it's. I need a mirror to put it on there, but it says love Pokey.
Yeah.
We can see it on the screen.
He loves you.
See, you can see it on your walls. I can't. It's backward on mine. I don't know. All right, enough of that.
We talked, Kevin. You talked to me about space in the run for chicks. At what point do I need to keep increasing the brooder? So I've got 5 chicks. What kind of space do they need, and when do I know that they need a bigger area?
That's just kind of, you'll recognize that. I think the thought is in the beginning, I think it's Julie and I were just having this big discussion. We're going to be having selling baby chicks here for the first time at the store, and what is considered to be what the minimum you need. And we were, I think it's like 6 square inches is what we've decided on. If you could go a little more than that, that's great. In the beginning, but
it's 6 to a foot.
Yeah, 6 to a foot. But to me, I think a foot's awful large in some ways. But we'll say 8.
There you go, compromise.
Or 9, excuse me, 9. But no, I think that you'll recognize as they're starting to get bigger, whether they're getting cramped. Once they really do start to get feathers, the more space, the better. That's what I have to look at it. In the very beginning, it's not bad to have them really in a tight area, in the sense of the ease of keeping them warm. But you want to make sure that they are in at least a large enough area that they can get away from the heat. So if you are using a heat lamp or something and the heat is directly down on top of them, you want to make sure they have the ability to get out of the heat. You don't want to have them trapped under a heat lamp. So.
That's a good. Go ahead, Julia.
As I said before, I raised 4 chicks in a fish tank, and I think it was a 20-gallon fish tank. So you don't necessarily need all the space that everybody claims. You kind of make do with what you have, but just watch them and see as they grow. As Kevin was saying, they might need a little bit more space as they start to grow, but initially they can get by in smaller space.
And you talked to Kevin a little bit about the chicks huddling together for warmth if they need to. Mine have done that outside of the brooder light lamp heat when they could be under that heat. Do they do that for comfort, companionship, or are they doing that for heat? Because there is a heat source, but they're not using it.
When you say they're outside the brooder, I mean, what do you mean they're outside the?
Yeah, outside the heat area, the heated area.
Oh, it's probably just more companionship. I would think that if there's the heat source and they've gotten out of the heat source and still huddling together, I don't think that their goal is to try to generate warmth. What's your thoughts on? you might have some troubled chicks there if that's what they're doing.
Well, if they're
That-
huddling
that's-
away from it, go ahead, Pat.
I think you were going to nail it.
Oh yeah, if they're moving away from the heat source and huddling together, then they might be too hot. So I would consider maybe raising the heat up, whatever heat source you're using, raising it so it's not quite as hot and lowering that temperature. Because I think if they're going away from it, then they're trying to get away from it.
It could be. You're exactly right. It could be too intense in one spot. So you may want to raise the heat up so it's more. That's true. Probably more across the board heat. Because like I said, if they get under it, they're too hot. If they get out, they're too cold. So it could be just they're having a hard time getting into that little in between area. So
Raise the heater.
yeah, raise your heater. Yeah. Raise your heat up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This week we put in pine shavings for the first time, and they started pecking at it. I don't know if they were eating it or just pecking at it and playing with it. Is there anything I need to watch out for as far as the digestive system if they start eating that?
I don't think they'll be able to eat it, really. They can peck at it for sure, but I doubt that they'll be able to ingest much of it if it's the type of pine shavings I'm thinking.
Yeah, it looks like giant potato chips for a
Yeah.
chick.
I don't think they'd be able to get that in them in them at all.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
If they are eating the pine shavings bread, you can feel their craw, and it'll be really soft and kind of mushy as compared with if they eat the crumble or the mash, it'll be a little firmer. So if they are,
Their craw right here. They're a little where they're storing their feed.
I thought that was the gizzard.
The
the
gizzard.
craw it's part of their digestive tract.
So if you're going in through their mouth, go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say the same thing you were. Go ahead. It goes to the craw first.
Yeah. So through the mouth, the first thing it hits, obviously the mouth, esophagus, into the crop. And then from there, it's going to go into the proventriculus, which is their true stomach. And it undergoes chemical digestion. And then it goes into the gizzard, which is the mechanical digestion. So it's a little bit backwards from other species.
So how do you feel that? I mean, they're very small. So if I pick them up, how do I feel that without choking?
Oh, here, I've got it. I'll show you. I have it for this one.
You've got a chick there?
I do.
Just got a stuffed animal chick.
I thought she had
it's a
one
real
live
chick.
behind her.
Mother,
There you
let me
go.
get the camera. See this mother? See that little chicken front? This is the photo for the couple the way they had. See that little bulge out there? That's its crop. So that chick has had a lot to eat. That's a very full, happy chick. Isn't that cute?
Mhm.
This is a little chick.
Is that unhealthy if they have that much?
Huh?
Is that unhealthy if they have that full of a crop?
No.
No,
It's
not unless
at
you
all.
see-
It'll just go down overnight.
Yeah, not unless you see that prolonged and not going down. I mean, if it stays, the chick starts struggling, then that means there's a crop impaction. But that typically doesn't happen that often. So
I've actually never had that I know of with a chick where its crop didn't go down. I have had calls from a chicken here saying, "Oh, my little chick has got cancer. It's got this growth on its chest." So don't even know if it's there in the morning.
That's
That was the next call. That was his next question. Well, actually, I think one of my chicks does have cancer because there is a large bulge in the front. So.
Just let chew aspirin and check it again in the morning. You can take the aspirin and let the chick sleep through the night.
I can't tell whether they're roosters or hens. Somebody posted on the side there, just wait until they crow. At what age will that start happening?
sometimes you have females that crow, so that's it. I wouldn't solely go off of that. Yeah, it is a good sign. I mean, roosters they'll start getting more provocative. They'll be, a lot more, they tend to be a little bit feistier than the females, and they will start crowing more consistently. But like I said, there have been known to have females that do that. So I don't know. Usually as they start to develop, though, you'll see their feathers change, and that's a better sign
What would I be looking for in their feathers to say rooster or hen?
Pat has a good comment on that. She just posted.
The hackle feathers will be pointed,
the neck
and
feather. The hackle
Yeah.
feathers, Brad, they'll be real pointy. And whereas in the hens, they'll tend to be rounded. And that's probably the most reliable way to tell if it's a male or female before they start crowing.
Yep.
And you can tell that relatively young, but I have made mistakes.
Rounded if it's female, a little bit pointier if it's male.
And real pointy. I mean, you'll see them actually physically pointy, not just the patterning, but the actual feather will be pointy.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
And is that like for Oricanas? That's what going to be the same for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think we have once again have used another hour of our time. Squandered. I didn't want to say, once again, you've wasted another hour of your time by listening to us blab on and on and on about chickens. But
Kevin, could I just say about some things coming up? That are,
yes, please do, Pat. Tell us about. Like I say, I'm interested in hearing about your incubation class.
Well, no, I wasn't going to say about that, but more the Coastal Home and Garden Show is coming up February 12th to the 14th, and Oprah Winfrey is being promoted as a featured speaker there, and they'll be doing 6 different workshops on chickens because they wanted to the entire peninsula over there now is legalized chickens, and there'll be the workshops will be chickens, pets with benefits, basically. Garden chicks, growing food with and for chickens, and then eggs, about extraordinary eggs. So that's coming up on the Friday, the 12th of February through Sunday, the 14th. And I'll be there with Oprah Winfrey. And I think I'm going to take a rooster with me as well. Not Barack, it's Arnold Eggenswartzer.
So where is this at again? It's the coastal. Where is this? The coastal? Where is this at
Home
again?
and Garden Show. It's in Richmond, Virginia.
In Richmond.
And I'll be glad to take
Richmond.
some. I already talked to Bill about taking some materials over from New Country Organic. And then, of course, the other thing is the Mother Earth Fair is coming up really fast. You're going to be down there with your booth, right, Kevin?
Yes,
And,
down in Belton, Texas, near Austin. So it's my first time to Texas like this. So yeah.
This is an amazing chick fair. They've got more chicken workshops than any of the other Mother Earth fairs since they started. And I'll be doing one on incubation. It's called the chick in egg. It's just about the incubation process. The one on home processing using tools you already have or can make. And then the other one is not on chickens, but it's on a tiny home to call your own. Upscale living in just right houses, because I used to be a co-owner of a tiny house company, construction company.
So, but you do have an online course on incubation, don't you? That you can take.
Yes,
is that
it's
correct?
starting March 1st, and you are more than welcome to join in. I'd love to have you in the class. Brad, you too. Waive the tuition for the sake of broadcasting. And it's the chicks will hatch out just in time for Easter. And we also go through including using and employing mother hens along with artificial incubation. It's a tandem course.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. Well, I thank all of you all. Thank you very much. As they say, ciao for now. Hasta pasta.
Thanks for the help.
All right.
Y'all have a great week.
Yeah.